The sound reaches Tan Phuong village before the site, February 14th, 1966, 0847 hours, deep rumbling, like thunder. But the sky is clear, no clouds, no rain, just bright morning sun over the rice paddies. Nguyen Van Hai is working his family's field. He's 42 years old, farmer, born in this village. His father farmed this land, his grandfather before him, 5 generations in Tan Phuong, growing rice, raising water buffalo, living the same life their ancestors lived for centuries. He stops working, listens. The rumbling is getting louder, closer. The ground is vibrating. He can feel it through his bare feet, through the water in the paddy. Something is coming, something big, something he's never experienced before. Other farmers stop, listen. 50 people working the paddies around the village, all hearing the same sound, all feeling the same vibration, all confused, all frightened. Hai's son, Nguyen Van Duc, age 16, points toward the tree line 800 meters west, says, "Father, look." The trees are moving, not swaying like wind, moving aside, being pushed. Something enormous is coming through the jungle, knocking down trees, crushing vegetation. The sound is deafening now, mechanical, grinding, roaring. Then it emerges from the tree line, and Hai sees something impossible. A metal monster, huge, 20 feet wide, 10 feet tall, grey-green, moving forward, not walking, rolling, on metal tracks that chew up the earth, with a long cannon barrel pointing forward, with machine guns mounted on top, with American flags painted on the sides, a tank, an M48 Patton tank, 49 tons of armor and firepower, moving at 30 miles per hour across open ground toward the village.
And behind it, 3 more tanks, and behind those, armored personnel carriers, and behind those, trucks filled with soldiers, a full mechanized column, Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 69th Armour, 50 vehicles, 200 soldiers, more firepower in this single column than exists in the entire province. Hai has never seen anything like this, never imagined anything like this. He's seen soldiers before, French soldiers in the 1950s, North Vietnamese soldiers now, men with rifles, men who walk, men who fight with weapons he understands. But this is something from another world. Metal machines that move like living things, that crush trees like they're grass, that rumble so loud they shake the earth, that carry weapons bigger than houses. Hai drops his tools, yells to the other farmers, "Run! Get to the village! Get inside!" 50 farmers scramble out of the paddies, running, terrified. They've never seen tanks before, don't understand what they are, just know they're dangerous, know they need to hide. The lead tank stops 200 meters from the village. The other tanks spread out, form a line, all turrets rotating, all cannons pointing toward Tan Phuong village. The armored personnel carriers deploy infantry, soldiers jump out, take positions, weapons ready, surrounding the village. Inside the village, 180 people hide, in houses, in shelters, behind walls, watching through cracks, terrified, confused, not knowing what these metal monsters want, not knowing if they're about to attack, not knowing anything except that the world just changed in a way they don't understand. This is the story of what happened when American armor arrived in rural Vietnam. When farmers who'd never seen mechanized warfare encountered tanks for the first time, when entire villages faced technology they couldn't comprehend, and what they said, what they told each other, what they told their children, what they reported to North Vietnamese forces, reveals how the introduction of American armor created psychological terror that no amount of firepower could match. If you want stories about how technology changes warfare, not through destruction but through fear. Hit subscribe right now. Because what happens in Tan Phuong village on February 14, 1966 will be repeated in hundreds of villages across South Vietnam. American tanks rolling into areas that have never seen mechanized warfare, creating panic, creating submission, creating a psychological weapon more powerful than the tank's guns. And what Vietnamese farmers say about these encounters, recorded by American psychological operations teams, documented by North Vietnamese intelligence, preserved in village testimonies, will prove that sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the one that kills. It's the one that makes people believe killing is inevitable. 6 months earlier, August 1965, Pentagon, Washington, D.C. The decision is made to deploy tanks to Vietnam. Not because terrain is suitable, it's not. Dense jungle, rice paddies, mountains, terrible tank country, but because psychological impact will be devastating. The assessment from military intelligence: Vietnamese rural population has no experience with armoured warfare. Introduction of tanks will create shock and terror. Villages that resist infantry operations may surrender immediately when confronted with armour. Psychological value exceeds tactical utility. Translation: tanks aren't great for jungle warfare, but they'll scare people into submission. That's worth the deployment cost. The decision isn't unanimous. Some officers argue against it. Lieutenant Colonel David Walsh, armor tactician at the Pentagon, writes memo opposing deployment. Armor is fundamentally unsuited to Vietnam terrain and operational requirements. Rice paddies will bog down heavy vehicles. Jungle trails cannot support tank weight. Enemy forces lack armor, requiring tank versus tank combat. Deployment of M48 Patton tanks to Vietnam represents misapplication of resources and misunderstanding of operational environment. Recommend light infantry and air mobility instead. His memo is noted and ignored. The decision is made at higher levels. The psychological effect outweighs tactical concerns. The tanks are going. In September 1965, 1st Armour units arrive in Vietnam. 1st Battalion 69th Armour, equipped with M48 Patton tanks. Each tank weighs 49 tons. Each has 90mm main gun. Each carries 3 machine guns. Each is designed to destroy Soviet tanks in European warfare. The M48 is overkill for Vietnam. There are no enemy tanks to fight, no armoured columns to engage. The NVA doesn't have mechanized forces, but that's not why the M48 is deployed. It's deployed because when a 49-ton tank rolls into a village that's never seen mechanized warfare, the psychological effect is total. People surrender, people flee, people comply. The tank doesn't need to fire, it just needs to exist. The battalion spends 2 months preparing, learning Vietnam terrain. Testing which ground supports tanks, which doesn't. Rice paddies with firm subsoil, yes. Soft paddies, tanks sink. Jungle trails, some work, many don't. Rivers, only at designated fords. They also learn the tanks terrify everyone. Vietnamese civilians flee when they hear engines. ARVN soldiers, supposed allies, keep distance. Everyone fears the machines. This confirms the psychological assessment. The tanks create fear on sight. Captain Robert McKenzie commands Alpha Company. He's 31 years old, armor officer, Fort Knox training. This is his first combat tour. He loves tanks, loves the power, the precision, the devastating capability, but he's learning that Vietnam isn't tank country. The terrain fights the tanks as much as the enemy does. His company has 14 M48 tanks. Each requires daily maintenance. Each consumes enormous fuel. Each needs parts that aren't available locally.
Each gets stuck in mud regularly. Each has mechanical problems constantly. The tanks are maintenance nightmares in Vietnam conditions. But when they work, when they roll into a village with engines roaring and guns pointing, the effect is overwhelming. Villages submit instantly. No resistance, no combat, just immediate compliance. Mackenzie has never seen anything like it. The tanks win without fighting, just by existing. The 1st Battalion, 69th Armour, begins operations in October 1965, training missions first, learning to operate in Vietnam terrain, learning which ground can support 49-ton vehicles, learning which can't. Rice paddies with firm subsoil, yes. Swamps, no. Jungle trails, sometimes. Rivers, only at designated crossing points. They also learn psychological operations procedures. When encountering villages, approach slowly from distance. Allow villagers to see and hear tanks before arrival. Form intimidating formation, line of tanks, all guns oriented toward village. Deploy infantry to prevent escape. Wait for village leaders to emerge and submit search village without resistance. Depart without firing, if possible. The goal, make overwhelming force so obvious that resistance is unthinkable. Make surrender the only logical choice. Win through intimidation, not destruction. Lieutenant James Chen, one of Mackenzie's platoon leaders, asks during training, "Sir, what if they don't submit? What if they fight?" Mackenzie, "Then we destroy them. The 90mm gun can level a village in minutes, but we give them every opportunity to avoid that. The tanks should make destruction unnecessary."
Fear should produce compliance, Chen. And if they're just farmers, no weapons, no NVA, Mackenzie, then we search, we leave, and we've demonstrated American power. Next time NVA tries to use that village, the villagers remember the tanks. Remember what could happen. That's the point. Psychological conditioning. By January 1966, the battalion is ready for full operations. Their assigned area, Quang Nam Province. Specifically, villages in contested areas, places where loyalties are uncertain, where NVA influence exists, where American infantry operations face resistance. The mission: enter these villages with armor, demonstrate American power, make resistance seem futile, convince villagers that cooperation is the only option. February 14th, 1966. Alpha Company gets orders. Sweep Tan Phuong village.
Intelligence indicates possible NVA presence. Villagers have been uncooperative with previous American patrols. Need to demonstrate consequences of non-cooperation. Need to show American strength. Need to make villagers understand what they're dealing with. Mackenzie briefs his platoon leaders. Our objective is submission, not destruction. We roll into this village with maximum visible force. We make them see that resistance is impossible. We make them understand they have two choices: cooperate or die. We make cooperation the obvious choice. Questions? Lieutenant James Walsh asks. "Sir, intelligence says possible NVA presence. What if they engage?" Mackenzie, "Then we destroy them, but we give them every opportunity to flee first. Our tanks will be visible from a kilometer away. Our approach will take 10 minutes. Anyone who wants to run has time to run. Anyone who stays and fights gets killed. That's their choice." Lieutenant David Chen. Rules of engagement for civilians. Mackenzie, "We don't fire on civilians. We don't fire on the village unless we receive fire. The tanks are threat, not weapon. The villagers need to see them, fear them, submit to them. But we don't shoot unless we're shot at. Clear?" "Clear, sir." At 0830 hours, Alpha Company begins approach to Tan Phuong village. The formation: 4 M48 tanks in front line, 6 M113 armoured personnel carriers behind trucks, with support infantry in rear, 50 vehicles total, 200 soldiers. They move slowly, 10 miles per hour, deliberately visible, deliberately loud. The tanks' engines roar, the tracks clank and grind, trees get knocked aside, the ground shakes.
From 1 kilometer away, everyone in Tan Phuong can hear them coming, can feel the vibration, can see the tree line moving as tanks push through. Nguyen Van Hai sees them emerge, sees 4 massive metal machines rolling toward his village, panics, yells warning. Farmers flee the paddies, sprint toward the village, desperate to get behind walls, behind anything that might protect them from these impossible monsters. The tanks stop 200 meters from the village, form intimidating line. All turrets rotate toward village center, all guns pointed at houses, all 50 caliber machine guns manned, all commanders standing in open hatches, visible, watching. The infantry deploys, soldiers spread out, surround the village, block all exits, weapons ready. The message is clear: nobody leaves, nobody runs. Submit or face consequences. Inside the village,
180 people hide, terrified. They've heard of American soldiers. Some have seen them, but this is different. This is mechanized warfare. This is technology they can't comprehend. These metal monsters could crush their houses, could destroy the village, could kill everyone, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Hai huddles with his family in their house, his wife Tran Thi Lan, age 38, his son Tuan, age 16, his daughter Mai, age 12, his mother, age 68, all crammed into their small home, all terrified. Tuan asks, "Father, what are those things?" Hai doesn't know, says, "Machines, American machines. I've never seen anything like them." Lan, "What do they want?" Hai, "I don't know, but we need to be careful, very careful. Those machines could destroy us all." His mother, who lived through Japanese occupation, French colonial war, and years of conflict, says quietly, "I have seen many soldiers, many weapons, but nothing like this. These are not weapons for fighting soldiers. These are weapons for destroying everything." Mai, the 12-year-old daughter, is crying. She saw the tanks emerge from the jungle, saw the trees fall, heard the sound. She's never experienced anything so terrifying. She asks, "Will they kill us?" Hai doesn't know how to answer, settles on, "If we do what they say, we will be safe. We must be very obedient, very quiet. We cannot anger them." Outside, the tank commanders wait. Standard procedure: give the village 5 minutes to process what they're seeing, 5 minutes to understand the situation, 5 minutes to realize submission is the only option. Captain McKenzie watches from his command tank. He's done this before. 3 villages in the past month. Same pattern every time: shock, terror, submission. Villages that resisted American infantry patrols immediately comply when confronted with tanks. They've never seen this kind of power, can't conceive of fighting it. Surrender is automatic. He watches through binoculars, sees people hiding in houses, sees faces at windows, sees the fear. This is what the Pentagon wanted. This is psychological warfare at its purest. No shots fired, no destruction, just overwhelming presence creating complete submission. 5 minutes pass. Mackenzie radios his interpreter, Sergeant Pham Van Minh, South Vietnamese Army liaison, says, "Announce." Minh uses the tank's loudspeaker, speaks in Vietnamese. "People of Tan Phuong village, you are surrounded by American forces. You cannot escape. You must cooperate."
the village elder must come out now, speak with American commander. If you cooperate, you will not be harmed. If you resist, the village will be destroyed. You have 2 minutes. Send your elder. Inside the village, everyone hears this, understands. The choice is explicit: cooperate or die. The village elder is Nguyen Van Duc, age 67. He's been village elder for 30 years. He's dealt with French colonial troops, with Japanese occupation during World War II, with Viet Minh fighters, with North Vietnamese cadres. He's navigated every power that has controlled this region, kept the village safe through changing allegiances, through war, through occupation. But he's never dealt with this. Metal monsters that shake the earth, American forces with overwhelming power, technology beyond imagination.
He consults quickly with other village leaders. They agree. Submission is only option. Fighting is suicide. These machines could destroy the village in minutes. Better to cooperate. Better to survive. Duke makes the decision. Better to submit than die. Better to talk than fight. Better to survive. He walks out of his house, hands raised, walking slowly toward the tanks, showing he's unarmed, showing he's compliant, showing he's not a threat. He walks across 200 meters of open ground, past the rice paddies, toward the line of tanks, every step visible, every step vulnerable. He's putting himself at American mercy, trusting they won't kill him. As he walks, he thinks about his life, 67 years, born in this village, raised here, married here, had children here, led this community through decades of war, kept them safe through French occupation, through Japanese brutality, through Viet Minh revolution, through partition, through renewal of war, always by being flexible, by submitting to whoever had power, by surviving. Now he's walking toward metal monsters, trusting that submission will work again, trusting that Americans, like French before them, will accept compliance, will allow survival. He reaches the lead tank, stops 10 meters away. The tank is enormous up close. The barrel alone is longer than his house. The machine gun could kill everyone in the village in seconds. The power is overwhelming, undeniable, absolute. He says in Vietnamese, "I am village elder. What do you want from us?" Minh translates. Mackenzie responds through Minh. "We are searching for enemy soldiers. We need to check your village. You will allow us to search. You will tell your people to cooperate. If we find enemy soldiers, we take them. If we find weapons, we confiscate them. If your people resist, we destroy the village. Do you understand?" Duke understands perfectly. Says, "There are no soldiers here, only farmers. You can search. We will cooperate. Please do not harm the village." Mackenzie studies him. Duke looks terrified but controlled, old, weathered. Someone who has survived by knowing when to submit. Good. This is what Mackenzie wants. Rational surrender based on accurate assessment of force imbalance. Mackenzie: "If there are no soldiers and you cooperate, no harm will come, but we will search thoroughly. Bring all villagers to the central square. Now." Duke nods, returns to the village, gathers everyone, 180 people, old people, women, children, men, all standing in the village square. All terrified, all watching the tanks that have formed a semicircle around them, all looking at the soldiers who have entered the village with rifles ready. Hai stands with his family in the square. Tuan whispers, "Father, why are we standing here? Are they going to kill us?" Hai whispers back, "Be quiet, don't move, don't do anything that might anger them. We survive by being invisible." His mother holds Mai, who is still crying quietly. The old woman whispers prayers, Buddhist prayers for protection, for mercy, for survival. Around them, other families cluster together, everyone silent, everyone terrified, everyone waiting. The search begins. American soldiers go house to house, room by room, looking for weapons, looking for NVA soldiers, looking for evidence of enemy activity. The search is thorough, invasive. They open everything, check everything, confiscate anything suspicious. They find Le Van Min's hunting rifle, old French rifle, used for hunting wild pigs. Le protests, for hunting, only hunting. But the soldiers take it anyway. Le watches them carry away his rifle, says nothing more, knows protest is dangerous. They find rice stores, more rice than one family needs. Could be for NVA, could be for normal Vietnamese custom of keeping reserves. The soldiers debate, decide to leave it. Not enough evidence. They find photos of young men in uniforms, someone's sons. Are they NVA? Are they South Vietnamese Army? Impossible to tell. The photos are confiscated for intelligence analysis. The search takes 2 hours. 2 hours of Americans moving through their homes, looking through their possessions, making decisions about what's suspicious, what's dangerous, what's allowed. The villagers stand in the square, watched by tank commanders, watched by machine gunners, watched by infantry, all vulnerable, all helpless, all waiting to see what happens. Mackenzie reviews the results. The soldiers find no NVA troops, no significant weapons, just farming tools, some old rifles used for hunting, nothing militarily significant. Mackenzie decides village is not actively hostile, not harboring enemy forces, just farmers trying to survive. No action needed beyond the demonstration. He tells Min, "Tell the elder, we found no evidence of enemy. This is good. The village will not be harmed. But remember what you saw today. Remember these machines, remember American power. If enemy soldiers come to this village, tell them to leave. If you hide them, we will return. And next time, we will not be so patient."
Do you understand? Min translates. Duke understands, says, "We understand. We will remember." Mackenzie, "One more thing. We will leave food, rice, medicine. This is gift. To show cooperation is rewarded. Tell your people. America helps those who cooperate. America destroys those who resist. Choose cooperation." The company distributes supplies, 50 pounds of rice, basic medical supplies, blankets, small gifts establishing goodwill, establishing that cooperation brings benefits, establishing that Americans can be generous to compliant villages. This is calculated. The psychological operation has 2 parts, fear and reward. Fear from the tanks, reward from the supplies. The message, cooperate and prosper, resist and die. Simple equation. Then Alpha Company departs. The tanks start their engines. The roar returns. The ground shakes again.
The machines that terrified the village are leaving, slowly, making sure everyone watches them go, making sure the image of American power is burned into memory. As the last tank disappears into the jungle, the villagers remain in the square, silent, stunned, processing what just happened. Finally, Duke speaks. "We're alive. The village stands. That is what matters. But remember what we saw. Remember what came here. Those machines could have destroyed us. We survived by not resisting. Remember this." Hai nods, takes his family home. His son Tuan asks, "Father, what were those things?" Hai struggles to answer, finally says, "Machines of war, made of metal, bigger than our houses, powerful beyond understanding. The Americans have these, many of them. We cannot fight these. Nobody can fight these."
We survive by not being their enemy, Tuan. But the NVA soldiers who come here, they fight Americans. How can they fight those machines? Hai, I don't know. Maybe they can't. Maybe that's why the war continues, because nobody can fight those machines, nobody can win against that power. His mother says, the Japanese had power too, they ruled us, but they left. The French had power, they ruled us, but they left. Americans have power now, metal monsters, but they will leave too. All powerful visitors leave eventually. We survive by outlasting them. That night, the village gathers, discusses what happened, what they saw, what it means. The consensus: Americans have power beyond comprehension, metal monsters that cannot be stopped, weapons that could destroy the village in minutes. Resisting is suicide. Cooperation is the only option.
But there's something else, something unspoken, fear, deep, primal fear. These machines triggered something visceral, not rational military assessment, pure terror, the kind of fear that comes from encountering something your mind can't process, something that seems invincible. One farmer, Le Van Min, age 34, whose rifle was confiscated, says, "The French had rifles, we had rifles, the fight was equal, but these metal monsters. How do you fight metal? How do you fight machines that big? You can't. It's impossible." Another farmer, Nguyen Van Hai, age 45, says, "I fought Japanese in 1945. I fought French in 1952. I know war. But this isn't war. This is something else. This is power we cannot match, cannot resist, cannot survive if we oppose." A younger man, Nguyen Van Duc, age 23, says, "My cousin is with the NVA.
He fights Americans. He says they can be defeated. He says they are weak, afraid, that their technology makes them soft. But after seeing those machines, I don't know how anyone defeats them. How do you fight something you can't hurt?" The village elder, Nguyen Van Duc, says, "We don't fight them. That is how we survive. We cooperate when they are here. We stay alive. That is victory enough. Let others fight their war. We will survive it." The village makes collective decision. They will not resist Americans, will not hide NVA soldiers, will not support armed resistance because the cost is too high. The Americans can destroy them completely, easily, without effort. The metal monsters prove it. This is exactly the psychological effect the Americans intended. The tanks didn't fire, didn't destroy anything, didn't kill anyone, just existed. Just demonstrated power, just made resistance seem futile, and it worked perfectly. Over the next 3 months, February through April 1966, Alpha Company conducts similar operations in 47 villages, same pattern every time, approach with maximum visible force, tanks leading, allow villagers to see and fear the armor, demand cooperation through interpreter conduct search while villagers are contained, depart with warnings and small gifts, leave villagers terrified but alive. Results: 47 villages, 0 resistance, 0 combat engagements, 0 American casualties, 0 significant enemy contact. Why? Because the psychological effect is total. Villages that might have hidden NVA soldiers, villages that might have resisted infantry searches, villages that might have supported guerrilla forces,
all submit immediately when confronted with tanks. The fear is overwhelming. These farmers have no frame of reference for mechanized warfare. They've seen soldiers, they've seen rifles, they've seen mortars and grenades, but 49-ton tanks? Never. It's technology from another world, technology that makes resistance seem suicidal. American psychological operations teams document the effect. They interview villagers after tank visits, ask what they thought, what they felt, what they'll do. Report from PSYOP team, March 1966. Villagers consistently expressed terror and awe regarding armored vehicles.
Common themes in interviews: tanks described as metal monsters or iron beasts. Villagers state they cannot imagine how to fight such things. Multiple villagers say resistance to American forces is impossible after seeing tanks. Village elders state they will not allow VCNVA presence because Americans will return with the metal monsters. Children traumatized by tank presence. Nightmares common. Overall assessment: armor creates psychological submission far exceeding tactical military value. The tanks are working, not as weapons, as psychological warfare. The mere existence of overwhelming force creates compliance, no shots needed, just the visible, tangible, impossible to miss demonstration that resistance is futile. But there's another effect, one the Americans didn't anticipate. North Vietnamese intelligence is watching. Documenting, analyzing, they see what's happening, see how villages are submitting, see the psychological effect of American armor, and they realize this is a vulnerability. American confidence in their technological superiority, their belief that overwhelming force creates permanent submission, their assumption that farmers who see tanks will never resist again. The NVA understands something. Fear fades. Technology can be countered. Psychological effects are temporary, and farmers who submit out of terror can be remobilized through different psychological approaches. In May 1966, NVA begins counter-propaganda campaign. Cadres visit villages that experience tank operations. Senior Lieutenant Nguyen Van Hai leads one of these teams. He arrives in Tan Phuong village 6 weeks after the American tank operation. Thanh gathers the villagers, speaks to them. "You saw American tanks, you were frightened. This is natural. The machines are impressive, powerful, designed to create fear. That is their purpose, not to fight, to frighten. But I tell you something Americans don't want you to know. The tanks are not invincible. They are powerful, yes, but they have weaknesses. They need fuel. Without fuel, they are just metal boxes. They need roads or firm ground. In mud, in swamps, they are stuck. They need spare parts. When they break, they cannot move. They need mechanics, fuel trucks, supply lines. All of these can be attacked. All of these can be disrupted. More importantly, the tanks cannot stay. They visit, they search, they leave. They cannot be in every village every day. They cannot watch you constantly. They are visitors. We are permanent. We live here. We stay here. And when Americans leave, and they will leave, we remain. So yes, when tanks come, submit, survive. Let them search, let them leave. But after they're gone, remember who is permanent. Remember who will be here in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, not the Americans, us, the revolution, your neighbors, your community. Cooperate with Americans when you must, but remember where your loyalty must lie. With those who stay, with those who are permanent, with us. This counter-propaganda is effective. It acknowledges the power of American tanks, doesn't deny the fear, but reframes it. Temporary fear of temporary presence versus permanent loyalty to permanent forces. By June 1966, villages that submitted to tank operations in February are again providing support to NVA forces, hiding soldiers, sharing intelligence, providing food and shelter. Why? Because the psychological effect of tanks is temporary. The terror fades. The rational calculation changes. Yes, Americans are powerful when present, but they're not always present. And when they're gone, NVA forces remain. And NVA forces can punish collaboration with Americans. The villages face impossible choice: submit to Americans when tanks arrive, or die immediately. support NVA when Americans leave or die later. They choose survival through flexibility, cooperate with whoever has guns pointed at them at any given moment. American intelligence notices the pattern. Villages cleared in February show NVA activity again by June. Villages that submitted to tank operations are again supporting enemy forces. The psychological effect is wearing off. Captain McKenzie reports to his battalion commander,
Lieutenant Colonel Frank Morrison, "Sir, we're seeing recidivism. Villages we cleared 3 months ago are active again. The tank operations create temporary submission, but it doesn't last. Enemy forces return, villages resume support. The psychological effect is temporary." Morrison, "What do you recommend?" McKenzie, "We need permanent presence or repeated operations. We can scare them with tanks, but fear fades. We'd need to return every few weeks, keep the fear fresh, keep the submission active." Morrison, "We don't have resources for that. We can't keep tanks in every village. We need them for mobile operations." McKenzie, "Then the psychological effect is limited, sir. It works in the moment, but it doesn't create lasting change. This is the fundamental problem with using tanks for psychological operations."
The effect is powerful, but temporary. The terror is real, but fades. The submission is immediate, but not permanent. By late 1966, American military analysis concludes, armor operations are tactically successful, but strategically limited. They create local submission. They allow searches without resistance. They demonstrate American power, but they don't create permanent loyalty or lasting pacification. The tanks continue operations through 1966 and 1967. They clear villages, they search for weapons, they intimidate populations, they demonstrate force, but they don't change the fundamental dynamics of the war. Villages submit when tanks are present, resume resistance when tanks leave. The cycle continues. In 1968, during Tet Offensive, many villages that experienced tank operations in 1966-1967 actively support NVA attacks. The psychological effect has completely dissipated. The fear of tanks has been replaced by other calculations. The terror that seemed permanent in February 1966 is gone by February 1968. Tan Phuong village, where Nguyen Van Hai watched tanks arrive with such terror, provides shelter for NVA forces during Tet. Hai himself helps hide soldiers, provides food, shares intelligence about American patrol patterns. When asked years later why he helped NVA after seeing American tanks, Hai says, "The tanks were terrifying, but they left. The NVA stayed. When you must choose between those who visit and those who stay, you choose those who stay. That is survival." American armor operations continue until US withdrawal, but the early hope that tanks would create psychological submission leading to pacification proves false.
The submission is temporary. The fear fades. The strategic effect is minimal. In 1995, after normalization of relations, American and Vietnamese researchers conduct oral history project, interview villagers who experienced American armor operations, ask what they remember, what they felt, what they learned. Nguyen Van Hai, the farmer from Tan Phuong village, is interviewed. He's now 71 years old, still farming, still in Tan Phuong. Interviewer: "You saw American tanks arrive in your village in February 1966. What do you remember?" Hai: "I remember terror, complete terror. I remember thinking, these are machines from another world. We cannot fight these. We will die if we resist. I remember feeling helpless, powerless, completely at their mercy." Interviewer: "Did that feeling last?" Hai: "For a while, weeks, maybe 2 months. We were very careful. very compliant. We didn't want the metal monsters to return. But then, life continued. The tanks didn't come back. We had to survive. We had to eat. The NVA forces came. They said, "The Americans cannot stay forever. You must support the revolution." So we did. Carefully, quietly, but we did. Interviewer: "Did you still fear the tanks?" Hai: "Yes, always. But we feared other things too. Starvation, NVA punishment for collaborating with Americans, airstrikes, artillery. There were many fears. The tanks were just one of them. We learned to live with fear, learned to navigate between forces, learned to survive." Interviewer: "Looking back, did the tanks change your village's loyalty?" Hai: "No. They changed our behavior temporarily, but loyalty, no. We were not loyal to Americans. We were not loyal to NVA. We were loyal to survival. We did what we needed to survive. When Americans came with tanks, we submitted. When Americans left and NVA came, we supported them. This is how we survived the war." This interview encapsulates the fundamental limitation of psychological operations through overwhelming force. It creates compliance, it creates submission, but it doesn't create loyalty. It doesn't create permanent change. It just creates temporary behavioral modification based on immediate threat. The villagers learned what Americans wanted them to learn. Tanks are powerful and resistance is futile. But they also learned what Americans didn't want them to learn. Tanks aren't permanent, fear fades, and survival requires flexibility. In 2008,
PBS produces documentary Armor in Vietnam, Technology and Psychology in Counterinsurgency. The documentary analyzes American use of tanks for psychological operations, includes interviews with American tank crews, includes interviews with Vietnamese villagers who experienced operations, includes military analysis. Key findings: American armor created powerful psychological effect on first encounter. Villagers had no frame of reference for mechanized warfare. Tanks generated terror and immediate submission. Psychological effect was temporary, lasting weeks to months. Villages resumed support for NVA forces after American departure. Repeated operations showed diminishing psychological returns. Overall strategic effect was minimal despite tactical success. The documentary includes interview with Captain Robert McKenzie, retired, now 73. "We thought the tanks would break their will. We thought if they saw how powerful we were, they'd stop supporting the enemy. We were wrong. We broke their will temporarily, but will regenerates. Fear fades. And we couldn't keep tanks in every village forever. So the effect was temporary. We won the encounters, but we didn't win the war." The documentary also interviews Senior Lieutenant Nguyen Van Hai, retired, NVA officer who conducted counter-propaganda operations. "We told villagers, yes, Americans are powerful, but they are visitors. We are permanent. Fear the powerful visitor if you must, but remember who stays when visitors leave." This message worked. Villages learned to submit to whoever had guns pointed at them at any moment, but underlying loyalty remained with forces that were permanent.
That was us. The documentary's conclusion: technology creates temporary psychological advantage, but sustained psychological effect requires sustained presence. American armor demonstrated power, but couldn't maintain presence. The psychological effect was powerful but fleeting. Strategic outcome was unchanged. Today, military academies study American armor operations in Vietnam as case study in limitations of technological psychological warfare. The operations demonstrated that overwhelming force creates immediate compliance, Compliance does not equal loyalty. Psychological effects fade without sustained reinforcement. Populations adapt to threats over time. Tactical success does not guarantee strategic success. What Vietnamese farmers said when they saw American tanks for the first time: "We cannot fight these. We must submit." These are monsters beyond our understanding. What they learned over time: the monsters are powerful but temporary. We survive by submitting when they're here. We resume resistance when they're gone. Fear is temporary. Survival is permanent. The tanks terrified them. The tanks made them submit. But the tanks didn't change the war, because fear fades, because presence is temporary, because technology without strategy is just expensive machinery making loud noises in villages that submit today and resist tomorrow. That's the story. The day farmers saw metal monsters for the first time, the terror that overwhelmed them, the submission that followed, and the gradual realization that monsters who visit and leave are less dangerous than forces that never leave. Nguyen Van Hai survived the war, survived the tanks, survived by being flexible, by submitting when necessary, by resisting when possible, by understanding that survival requires adapting to whoever has power at any given moment. He's still farming, still in Tan Phuong, still growing rice, still living the life his ancestors lived. The tanks came, the tanks left, the war ended, life continues. And when his grandchildren ask about the war, he tells them about the day the metal monsters came, about the terror, about the submission, about learning that fear is temporary but survival is permanent. That's what Vietnamese farmers said when they saw American tanks for the first time, and what they learned in the years that followed.